Okay, next up, two more built-in functions, this time a pair, max and min. So they work very similarly, except they do the opposite thing. So max will take, there's a couple ways of using it. You can pass it two or more individual arguments, and it will tell you the max, in max numeric value, or the max alphanumeric value if it's string characters. So I can show an example of that. We could do something like max of 3, 67, and 99, and it tells us max is 99. Okay, so that's the simplest way to use it. Or we could do, individual strings like C, D, and how about A? And it tells us D is the max. And that's because of the way that strings are weighted, right? It goes from A up to Z. We can also pass in an iterable, like a list, or a string, or a dictionary, or a tuple, and it will tell us the maximum item in that iterable. And this still seems maybe not that useful, but we could have a list of nums, and these nums could be totally random, right? Like this. And then I could just ask for the max of nums. And while I'm here, I'll show you min does the same thing, except opposite. So it tells me that the minimum number in there is 5. Okay, we could also, just to show you, we can do max, pass in a string like hello world, like this, and it tells me the max is W. If I did min instead, the min I think is going to be E. Oh, no, the space comes before E. Anyway, so this is an iterable thing. Remember, it's a string, so this counts. I could also do max on a tuple. That's the last thing I'll show before I show a more exciting example. We have a tuple here, like that. It gives me 65 as the max. Okay, so that's okay enough. But let's say we have this list of names. So I'll just paste it in. Okay, Aria, Samson, Dora, Tim, and Ollivander. And I want to know the minimum or the maximum length up. So if I just did min of names, it's going to give me Aria because alphabetically I think is how it's doing it. Or is it based off of the index? I don't know by default. No, it's doing it alphabetically, which is not what we want. Suppose I want to know the shortest name in here. Who has the shortest name or the longest? It'd be the same logic. Okay, so there's a couple of options. The first thing we could do, if I just wanted to know the length itself of the shortest number, I could do min and then length, len, for name in names. So this is just like what we did with all and with any. This is a generator expression, so we don't have to do, well, first of all, it tells me the shortest length is 3. So if we just copy this, remember, if you watch that video, I get a generator object, generator expression, and we don't have to actually put in those list brackets. But if I did put in the list brackets to do, I would get the length, 4, 6, 4, 3, 10, and then I find the min on that. But because I'm not using this list for anything, I don't need those brackets. If you didn't watch the video on any and all, it goes into more detail on that. But the problem here, this is just giving us the shortest, the actual length itself. What if I want the name Tim? Or if I did max instead, I would want it to give me Ollivander instead of whatever this is, 8 or 9 characters. Maybe it's more. Anyway, to do that is a little bit more complex. We need to use a lambda. First, I'm just going to copy this over here so we have a record of it if you're looking at this. Okay, so let's do max this time. I want to find the longest name. So the longest in names, comma, and just like with sort, I can pass in a key. And key, I'm going to set to a lambda again, and I'll call the parameter n. So this is how we specify the way things should be sorted to figure out the min or the max. So what's the property? And we want length of n. Does that make sense? So lambda, if you're totally lost on lambdas, I don't stress it too much, but go back and watch the lambdas video. But what we have here is this little anonymous thing, a function essentially, where we have a parameter n, and for each one of these, we're going to call this, take the n and do length of n, and that's the expression that's returned. So that will be a number like 2 or 3 or 5 or 7, and then we're going to use that to judge the max. And that's how max works if you pass in key. So let's see what we get. Ollivander. And if we did the same thing but changed it to min, we get Tim. So what we saw here was giving us the actual shortest length itself. Here is using that length to find the shortest name and give us the name. One more example, our same songs list we've been using. Let's say I want to find the minimum. Let's say I want the song that has the least number of plays. So that would be min, and then I'll use a lambda again. So first I need to tell it to sort songs, or to use songs, and then the key is going to be lambda, and we'll go with song. I like to keep these short and just do S. Stands for song though. And what's the property? It's play count. Like that. And first we need to tell Python over here about songs. And now I'll paste this one in. What do we get? There we go. Happy birthday has the least number of plays. And if I did max, I get YMCA. And let's say I only wanted the title, right? I want to find the title of the song that's played the most. I could just tack on title. And I get YMCA because this is returning to me a dictionary. And then if I just add title there, that will give me the title of the most played song. Okay, so I'll copy that over as well. So hopefully you can see a pattern here. A lot of these built-in functions I'm showing you, they work on one level, they're simple, but then you can specify kind of an additional argument or parameter where you pass in a lambda that makes it kind of more flexible. Syntactically more confusing, but if you're able to wrap your head around lambdas and what's actually happening here, this is a really nice way if you need to do something like min or max, although it's not that hard to do it yourself. If we wanted to recreate this right here, we would just loop through like for song in songs. We'd have a variable called max, right? And we could set it equal to, I don't know, the first song or something. Song 0, it doesn't matter, set it equal to 0. And then all we do is we loop through here and we check, okay, if song play count is greater than max, then we'll just set max equals song play count. And it's going to loop through each time. And if it finds a new max, it updates the max variable. And then at the end, we could print max. But this is easier. All right. So I'll comment this up, and then this will be in the resources if you want to download it.